Hello, my name is Shauna Spears, and this is a video response to the needs and challenges of disaster video from HCU Online Course Development on YouTube. This video is a continuation of another titled The Stages of Disaster, which was presented earlier in the Crisis Response and Trauma Care course that I am currently taking. The aftermath of Hurricane Katrina is discussed and explained for others in the Christian mental health field. It also expands on the stages and really dives deep into the specifics, such as the struggles that they face and their treatment. In this video response, I will discuss the heroic, honeymoon, and disillusionment phases in more detail. The heroic phase immediately follows the disaster. This is when support efforts are focused on that area, and there is an energy fueling the rescue efforts. It's very enticing and it's very exciting, but also there's a lot of work being done. There's usually media coverage and likely government, corporate, and church responses in the place and volunteers will be there to help with the needs of the community. The needs and challenges of the heroic phase are that people often push very hard. They keep working through things even when they should be resting possibly, and they may struggle to see the long-term reality of the situation. This can lead to exhaustion and burnout if not handled carefully. There can be a sense of denial and tunnel vision on getting the job done. After the heroic phase, people start to be encouraged and see that things are getting better. This is often called the honeymoon phase, but it's not as warm and fuzzy as it might sound. There are heartwarming stories that come out during this time, and there will be people moving forward. But the honeymoon phase can include a crash point. And this is when survivors, as well as responders, become exhausted and worn out. While the mind may desire to keep going, while they may want to push through, the body eventually wants to give out and shut down. There are often more physical ailments reported, and these physical ailments are needing attention. There can be heartaches, there can be migraines and strokes and things that the body is doing to say, I need a break. Following the heroic phase is the disillusionment phase. This is when fear, anger, and hopelessness can set in. It is when the true impact of what really happened during the disaster hits the community. And this can be extremely daunting and overwhelming. In this phase, money and other resources are likely to start running out, and people may wonder, how are we able to go on with this work? How can we continue through this? There's just so much. There's often a significant amount of weariness, fatigue, despair, and depression. Unfortunately, there is also an increased amount of suicide attempts during this time. Some of the clinical conditions that may develop during these circumstances are things like PTSD, anxiety, as I mentioned, suicides, addictions, co-occurring traumas, violence, domestic violence, gambling, and alcohol and drug use, just to name a few. To best overcome these, the mental health issues that are showing themselves, there does need to be mental health professionals offering services. They will be able to give assessments and determine if there is an actual diagnosis that needs attending to, or if there are ways to help them cope and work through their trauma. We want to make sure that there are things in the community that they are learning to do as well, because when the community is able to respond and learn how to prepare for the next possible event that may occur, this can actually help them to feel more prepared and more confident. So some ways that this can happen is the community being trained on psychological first aid. There may also need to be suicide prevention training. This is incredibly important, especially toward the end when things get really hopeless and difficult to overcome. The church can step in and start to offer more Bible studies, small groups possibly, discipleship programs. And then it's really important to understand that the victims, the survivors, are going to need their basic needs met. That's the first and most important thing. It could take a long time for their homes to be taken care of. It can take a long time for their jobs to be secured, their vehicles, different situations. Those are the basic needs that need to be met. And as was mentioned in the video, the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, this is something that we need to keep in mind, both as professionals, but teaching those in the community as well, because it may not be the right time for that particular survivor to discuss matters of faith. But what we can do as Christian counselors is we can be the hands and feet of Jesus, walking through with them, giving them the needs that they are, helping them to meet the needs that they have. And then when the time is right, when they are starting to recover, when things are moving forward, that may be the right time to discuss more matters of faith. Communities will also continue to communities will also need to continue working on being resilient. And they need to be prepared, as I mentioned, because this could potentially happen again, and especially in places where hurricanes are frequent, especially in places where tornadoes or floods are frequent. This is something that every community has its particular disaster that happens. So it's very important for the community to be prepared, but also for individuals and families to be prepared. Again, this can build confidence and surety within themselves. Being able to have relationships developed ahead of time is also incredibly important. This was mentioned in the video. There are agencies that are prepared to take in those that are losing homes or have to evacuate now because they have learned from that experience during Hurricane Katrina. So they've partnered with churches, they've partnered with other agencies like nonprofits so that plans are developed and they are made ready to be able to handle all of the things that may come at them during a disaster. Today, I did go ahead and break down those 3 specific phases. Again, that was the heroic phase, the honeymoon phase, and finally, it was the disillusionment phase. These are not necessarily going to be completely in order, and they're not going to be the end all be all. They may go back and cycle through. There may be more disasters that happen after another disaster. And this was something that happened in the place of, or after Katrina, there was an oil spill. So it's very important that responders and Christian counselors are able to see the bigger picture of what recovery looks like. There are specific phases, there are specific needs during each of those phases. And as we've seen, there are different issues that come up, things that are difficult to handle, difficult to cope with for the survivors as well as the responders. So I appreciate you listening to my video response. To conclude, I would like to discuss what I used to reference all of the information I was able to discuss today. I included the HCU course development YouTube video on the needs and challenges of disaster. That's the first and most specific one. I did reference the original video from a few weeks ago that I watched, the HCU course development YouTube video on stages of disaster. And then all of this has been kind of solidified and understood within a bigger picture based on the book Fundamentals of Crisis Counseling by Jerry Miller. This is for my crisis response and trauma care class, again, for Houston Christian University. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and have a wonderful day.